Hello and welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Caw and I am overjoyed to be joined in person by Record Sports Keith Jackson. Keith, how's it going?
All right. See that wee jingle that we play at the start of the thing?
It's loud, isn't it?
It's quite aggressive, isn't it?
It's quite. I like it.
We've got a behind the scenes a Swedish producer. I wonder if this is kind of Swedish rock or something.
And he is literally called Henrik.
That's true.
It's not a nickname, isn't it?
That is true. Henrik, our Swedish producer.
I should say
heavy metal Henrik.
Before we go any further, we're also joined by Record Sports Fraser Wilson. Fraser, how's it going?
Good evening, chaps. Very well.
And all the way across Glasgow, outside Celtic Park, the one and only Craig Swan. Swanee, how's it going?
Good, waiting for Henrik to put Ace of Base on.
By the way, see on that, right? I can't remember what game it was, but some Aberdeen game was covering recently, and Shaden Morris revealed the secret behind Jimmy Tellin's Revolution is some mad Swedish hardcore tune that they play in the dressing room after every game, win, lose or draw. Well, clearly I've just lost the first one. So there you go. He didn't know what it's called. He couldn't even recite it back to us, but I think we need to find out what that tune is.
Must all have been 16 songs in the LP.
Henrik's been moonlighting with Dodgy.
Did they have LPs in? I don't know.
Listen, before you freeze to death, Swanee, we better get on with the rest of the show.
Nice and warm in here, Swanee.
That's it. It's lovely. You're missed, actually. There's only two of us in the studio tonight. Before we go any further, though, Keith and Swanee were at Celtic's press conferences today with Brendan Rodgers. And before I get your guys' take on it, let's hear a little bit of what the Celtic manager had to say.
On a purely personal level, Brendan, how much do you enjoy the challenge of the Champions League and pitting your wits? And when you mentioned after Dortmund that you had to review that everybody could have done better, yourself included in that. How much do you enjoy it? Because you seem to be thriving on it.
Yeah, it's the highest level of European football. So we're playing against a lot of teams that are superior to us and from superior leagues. So that challenge in itself is absolutely great. Trying to find ways of which to gain the results that can bring you to your end point. So, but yeah, it's an amazing competition to be involved in. You have some games where you have to take your medicine, but I'm pretty sure it's all learning, and it's no different to probably yourselves. I'm pretty sure you don't write your scripts first up all the time. I'm sure you draw your line through some pieces of paper and whatever else, and we're exactly the same. Where we learn, we hope to be better, improve, and certainly from a manager's perspective, it's a really exciting level to be involved in.
And Swanee, I understand that you've just fresh from coming from Leipzig's press conference.
How many lines did you put through your stuff, Swanee?
But two old fellas have just walked past me here and asked if I was going to start singing. So that's a good start. That's a best reference. Yeah, just finished with RB Leipzig, coach Marco Rose. Obviously, he's no stranger to being here. He's won here twice before. He was a coach of Leipzig 2 years ago, and also with RB Salzburg 6 years ago when Brendan Rodgers was the manager of Celtic. So he knows what he's getting into. Obviously, everybody knows the league positions at the moment. I think there's a bit of falseness about Leipzig's position, given the opposition they've had to play, but they don't have any points. Marco Rose has obviously made the point that they need to start gathering them, and they need to start gathering them pretty quickly. So I think you can take it from that this game's being targeted, as you would expect, very complimentary about Celtic. Obviously, he knows a few of the players, obviously, from doing his homework prior to the games 2 years ago, so there's still some boys that were here, and obviously, although he wasn't there, he didn't know him at the time. Nicholas Kuhn, obviously, is a former youth player at RB Leipzig, so there's a few familiar faces, but he spoke warmly about Celtic, he spoke warmly of his experiences of this stadium, so he's looking forward to it.
Swanee, I think that's what makes it such a potentially tricky one for Celtic this time, because Leipzig are sitting with no points from the first three games. I think it was Atletico Madrid, Juventus and Liverpool. So they've had the real thick end of the wedge in this Champions League phase.
And I should say, they've also got Villa still to come, Celtic Park and Inter.
Yeah, so they will have identified this as a chance to get points on the board. I think you'd feel, as odd as it is to say, you'd probably feel a lot more comfortable if they were sitting there with 9 points in the bag from the first 3 games.
I know what you mean now.
Because they're going to have to throw the kitchen sink at Celtic. That's a wee bit of a concern, Swanee, for me.
Yeah, and I don't think the start of the season wasn't wonderful, but October, I think they had a terrific spell in October where they were winning games. They really started to find their form in the Bundesliga. I think they're just 3 points behind Bayern Munich at the moment and they're sitting in second place. So they've obviously, listen, we all know that you don't have to tell Celtic about the power of the Bundesliga after Borussia Dortmund. So listen, it was always going to be a difficult game, Keith, but I do agree with you that they are now it's pretty much entering cup final territory now for Leipzig. Every game as they're trying to gather points. So as I say, they won here 2 years ago and they'll fancy their chances of doing that game. It's a very, very dangerous game for Celtic. But as we spoke about after the game in Bergamo, sorry, I didn't make that mistake, the game in Bergamo against Atalanta, Celtic and golfing balance are 1 under, aren't they? Because I think most people would have thought after 4 games in this section, Celtic would have had 4 points. They've got the 4 points after 3, so anything they can get tomorrow night, again, you're in bonus territory again. So I think Celtic can relax a wee bit, but it's going to be a very, very difficult game.
Let me hit all of you with this comment here we've had sent in on Facebook. Joe McCasey, people are bringing up Leipzig, but I fully expect Celtic to win tomorrow. This is a side that's lost at Celtic Park and Ibrox in recent years. Now, obviously, that was very different Leipzig teams, to be fair. But I definitely feel, Keith, that there's a confident feeling among Celtic and the fans going into this one.
Yeah, and that's a worry as well, isn't it? Let's not kind of. And I think Brendan Rodgers went to great lengths today to maybe bring the expectation bar down a little bit by stressing again and again that this side is the same level as Atalanta, the same level as Borussia Dortmund. Well, actually higher than Dortmund in the Bundesliga right now. That tells you how dangerous, potentially perilous this is for Celtic. But as Swanee said, do you know what? A point's a good result. And, obviously Celtic won't set out to get a point. I think they will set out to try and win the game. I think Brendan Rodgers has learned. He talked about that today, the learnings that he's made. He after Dortmund, he said he wouldn't change things for Atalanta. We clearly see that he did change it. Celtic were so much tighter, sharper all over the pitch. They were so much more diligent in terms of shutting down spaces, and that sort of defensive fine-tuning will be required, even though Celtic will set out to win this game.
Yeah.
But it's just as Swanee says. And I think another thing that came up at today's press conference was, Brendan Rodgers was asking the fans to respect the club's wishes, do not bring pyrotechnics to the stadium.
Yeah.
And I think, Swanee, that could play a major part in this. If somebody is stupid enough to do that, or a bunch of people is stupid enough to do that tomorrow night, there's a danger that parts of Celtic's ground could get shut down later in this campaign when they're facing the very games that you put a circle round at the start to say these are the winnable ones, and these are the ones that can get Celtic into the playoffs. So you kind of hope that there's a bit of common sense there as well, Swanee, don't you?
Well, I mean, you would like to think, given those circumstances and given the messages for the manager, that is going to seep through. I don't think there's anything more I can say. There's nothing more any of us can say on that. If you're not listening, if you don't see the threats and you're not listening to what your manager's telling you, then there's no hope for you.
Just to go back to the football, guys, before we let you go, Swanee, Brendan Rodgers, well, has been absolutely formidable in domestic football, second to none. But Europe is the one area where he himself will know he has to do better and he has to progress more in. I thought it was interesting, Keith, in the semi-final at the weekend. Everyone was made about his Tom Fords and falling over and all that.
Yeah.
But no one's really concentrated why. He was booting the ball into the pitch. When do you ever see Rodgers doing that?
Well, that was fascinating. And at the press conference today, while asking him about, how he enjoys the challenge and relishes the challenge, he did say just moments before that the reason that he slipped on his Tom Fords was because he was looking at a sloppy period of play. They were being careless with passes. And his point today was, well, you know what? You can do that domestically without getting damaged. But if you do that against Leipzig tomorrow night, we've got all kinds of trouble coming.
Punished.
And that's exactly the point he's made. And he referenced it, told it against himself. That was the reason he got booked at the weekend. Not because he was worried about how the Aberdeen game was going, But if he sees that sort of sloppiness replicated tomorrow night, there's going to be bother.
Yeah.
And
couple-
Dan, just to back up what Keith's saying, I think we all remember Celtic won a domestic game 6-0 prior to playing a Bundesliga team the last time.
Yeah.
And there were
Yeah.
sloppy moments at St Johnstone.
Very
Just
good
little
point.
bits now and then. And that's why he's trying to iron them out, because he knows what the jump is going to be. He knows that. And he wants Celtic playing at this high intensity elite level at all times. That is what he's looking for. And if they step off the gas at any point domestically, he clearly realises it could have an effect going into the next game, so he just wants it eradicated, full stop, which is very hopeful for Celtic fans in terms of Europe, and utterly chilling for the remainder in Scotland.
Speaking of utterly chilling, Swanee, I know it's cold there, but before we let you go, a couple of
Good,
comments.
like that, wasn't it? Did you like that?
That was good. That was nice. That was lovely.
It was a gentle reminder for Swanee. It is Baltic.
Kenny
And he's not got a long sleeve jacket.
Kenny Manclark, the only way to make them learn is a complete lockout till they get the message. That's in reference to the Pyros, I think. And this one I'll throw at all of you. It's from Dr. Dan, who says, who should start up top, Kyogo or Aida?
Kyogo for me.
Aida started the game in Bergamo, didn't he?
He did.
But you'd have Kyogo.
Yep.
Swanee?
I probably would just edge towards Kyogo myself because of his goals at home. Lazio, Atletico Madrid, Slovan this year, but I think it's a tighter call than a lot of people think.
Fraser, what about yourself? Kyogo or Aida up front?
Yeah, I'd make that hat trick. I think Big Ida was started in Atlanta for a specific reason, wasn't he? For that out ball. I think tomorrow, where Celtic will maybe feel the onus to go and attack a bit more, that I think it'll be important to have that kind of that movement, that unrivaled movement that Kyogo brings to that Celtic team in about the box. But like Swanee,
Dangerous that though, Fraser, isn't it? Is that not dangerous? Because
Ida
Leipzig
will-
every bit as enthusiastically and fiercely as Atalanta do.
what was that? Sorry.
I said it would be. Celtic have to be careful, do they not? Because look, we saw the first half an hour of Leipzig's game against Liverpool.
Yeah.
They press feverishly and as energetically as what Atalanta do. And
That's-
Liverpool were 2 goals down in that first 20 minutes. So Celtic have to be careful.
That's why
I-
this could almost be a bigger test than Atalanta in a way, because they need to marry that balance, don't they? Celtic are going to have to try and get at Leipzig, but at the same time, like you say, they still need to defend with that resilience that they showed in Atalanta. They've got to get the balance of the two tomorrow, whereas maybe they got away in Italy with just being that wee bit more on the back foot.
Yeah, and that's what I think. Celtic will be aggressive, and they will. I think it's almost too much of a backward step to say, right, Ida's going to spearhead it. He might become detached because our 5 across the middle are going to have to shuffle back in, and but he's a good out ball at that point. I think if you do that, you're probably taking a backward step. By the way, I'm not saying that there wouldn't be a logic to that, but I just find it difficult to think that Celtic will set up that way at home in front of their own fans in any game. And for that reason, I would expect Kyogo. But it is interesting, and it is something. If that was the blueprint that they worked out over in Atalanta, then perhaps you roll it out again.
Yeah.
Perhaps you do, but I would suspect he won't. I would suspect Kyogo will play.
Swanee, what's your prediction?
I think if Celtic could get a point, it would be a terrific result, and I'm going to back them to get one. Yeah, 1-1 or 2-2. Similar to the Atletico Madrid game last year.
I worry about this one because Leipzig need to get 3 points. I think a point would be a great result. I totally agree with Swanee. I would like to think that it's achievable. It might well be. I kind of get a feeling that Leipzig will get what they need from this game.
Fraser, what do you think?
Oh, help my Bob. I'm trying to be positive here. So I think, could it be one of these kind of classic 2-2s that you see at Celtic Park in the Champions League? That's about as positive as I can go for. Look, I thoroughly expect it to be an entertaining game and close right to the end. Like the guys have both said, I do fear that Leipzig need to get something and probably need to get 3 points for this game to light a fire under their campaign. So I'm a wee bit fearful, but I will go for a score draw, maybe 2-2.
I can tell you if you want what the score's going to be.
Okay, please.
It's going to be 1-0 Arne Engels. There you go. We can take that to the bank.
You've done a few of these predictions, haven't you?
I don't know how many.
You've very seldom got any of them right.
You can take that to the bank.
Did you not tell us that Celtic were going to win in Dortmund?
I did say that.
You did.
I think I said.
You told us Scotland were going to win the opening game of the Euros against Germany.
It's just winding you
I think you should best keep these to yourself.
It's going to be 1-0, Engels. Swanee, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
It was good of Fraser to torture me by saying lighting a fire in his last sentence. Thanks for that. Thanks, boys. Good night. Have a good one.
Cheers, Swanee. Much appreciated.
Go and get the heated seats on in the car, Swanee.
Indeed.
I was getting a remark there.
There he goes, aye.
Craig Swan there, outside Celtic Park. And
Commitment.
A massive game for Celtic tomorrow night in the Champions League. But we should say, Keith, that there's been a Scotland squad announced today.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, Fraser, you were there for the announcement.
Oh, why?
No, it sounds very enthusiastic.
But it was only 6 hours ago, and it feels like yesterday. I had to think there. Was that today? Yes, it was this afternoon.
Was Steve Clark hard work today, Fraser?
No, he's fine. He's more relaxed, I think. Well, 4 games since that disaster in Germany that we really can't bring ourselves to go over again. No need to go over it again. I think 4 games have brought a bit of positivity back into the Scotland support, ourselves even. We're seeing what he's trying to do again. Bizarrely not won any of them right enough, but I think we've been close enough in all 4 games, and it could have been so much better, but for some bad luck in the closing stages. So I think we're over that rocky summer and ready to look forward again. Do you agree, Keith?
Yeah, I do. I was just being a little bit facetious. There's no doubt about it. At the start of this campaign, I had my fears, and I thought if what we get is more of what we saw in the summer at the tournament, then I didn't think Steve Clark was going to. I think he was going to come under serious pressure ahead of the World Cup qualifiers. What we've seen from Scotland is a very different approach, and it's. I think even though the results haven't been great, I think there's an understanding. Look, we're playing against the top pot here, and that's okay as long as we're brave about it. As long as the team is set up to be brave, and just to be a little bit more aggressive and bold than it was at the tournament when we went out, like less than a whimper. So I must say though, Fraser, I find it hard. These international breaks just now, they're coming too thick and too fast. They're making the domestic season.
To be on your third and we're just the first week in
it's
November.
A bit much.
It's a bit mad.
It's a bit much. And now you're getting Kevin De Bruyne phoning up the Belgian saying, well, can I be excused? The players, the Nations League is in danger of becoming a sort of a B League event because the top players, guys at Man City, Pep's going to be in the area. What are you doing going to play in the Nations League? Who cares? I think there's a danger of that. But I tell you what, Steve Clark is using it to sort of find the Scotland side that he wants to take into the World Cup qualifiers. And for that, it's really, really useful for us. Yep. For the other nations, I'm not sure how much they're taking out of this. And let's hope Croatia turn up and want to take the night off when they arrive at Hampden.
Yeah, you're saying that, Keith, but we've seen Ronaldo at Hampden. We've seen Lewandowski. We'll probably see Modric next week. De Bruyne loves him on, to be fair to him, doesn't he? Rodri the same. But I get your point. 3 international breaks in 3 months is far too much. And that's coming from me, a Scotland fan. Too much. It's too much in the players more than anything. The travelling involved. In fact, most of them are involved in European competition with their clubs as well. It's far too much in the legs. So this is the last one till March, thankfully.
What do you say about Shea Adams? Because Shea Adams came off at the weekend for Torino.
It's only lasted 17 minutes for Torino against Fiorentina. I think it's a thigh, some sort of thigh injury in his left leg, I think. So I admitted there's a big doubt. Interestingly said, I mean, it's very early to claim this, but said he won't be calling anyone else up. He's happy with the 4 strikers, which includes Adams, that he's named in the squad today. And he's happy to just go with the 3 if Adams doesn't make it. But I find that quite hard to believe, to be honest. I think if Adams was to call off in the next few days, we'd perhaps see somebody called up to fill the gap, because it only leaves you with Lyndon Dykes, Tommy Conway, and out of sorts Lawrence Shanklin, doesn't it? If Adams isn't there.
And Ben Doak.
Well, he can play. That's a good point. He can play through the middle, up top. So that could come into his thinking. Look, Clark was hungry. Clark's hungry for a first competitive win in 13 months, and he I mean, I can't say too much because this was in the embargoed section, but he's absolutely hungry to dispel any notion that relegation out of League A might actually be a good thing for Scotland. You know, a lot of punters thinking these hard games, these defeats, these back-to-back defeats aren't doing anything for morale, for players, or for our standing in the game. Steve Clarke wants to remain at the top table, testing ourselves against the best. And he made that clear when the point was put to him. So they need at least one win for these two games to have any chance of surviving. I would suggest they maybe need 4 points or even 2 wins. That's maybe a bit of a stretch, but I do fancy them, Keith, Daniel. I do fancy them to win one of these games.
Well, just on the squad before we move on, but Kieran Slicker was called up. Fraser, I imagine he's just going to be the third choice goalkeeper. He's very unlikely.
He's having a look at options, isn't he?
He's very unlikely to actually get on the pitch. But one man who wasn't in the squad, which I was quite gutted about, was Lennon Miller, right? And I know it's very early, and I know today Fraser, Steve Clarke, kind of said, look, it's very early, let's let him grow, stuff like that. But this comment in from Kai Sutherland, who I think raises a good point. 5 professional appearances for Lamine Yamal to make his Spain debut. 50 plus professional appearances for Lennon Miller, but apparently still needs space to grow at Motherwell. Now, I know Lennon Miller's not Lamine Yamal, easy for me to say, but he is one of Scotland's, if not the brightest player in the Premiership. You see all the time, other nations, they get their brightest players, their up-and-coming stars, right into the national team and start growing them. I would have liked to have seen Lennon Miller in the squad.
I just get the feeling that he kind of, what Steve Clarke's like. He's cautious and he does things incrementally, doesn't he? And he's got Ben Doak in and he's probably thinking, I don't want to run a crash here. This is the Scotland main squad. There might be an element of that. I'm with you. I think the sooner these boys get fast-tracked, because when you identify a talent that is going to the top, as Lennon Miller clearly is, get him in, get him involved, get him
exactly
relaxed around the surroundings, make him feel part of it, because he's going to spend a long time as part of it.
Yeah.
Along with your Billy Gilmores and your Lewis Fergusons and these guys. There's a very good generation of player here. And that, actually, although I started off by moaning the fact that we've got another international break coming over the horizon, you actually think about it, it's quite exciting, isn't it?
Aye, absolutely.
We've got a decent squad. And I'm interested to see if Ben Doak can become a game changer at this level, if we can get a win against Croatia, if we can go to Poland and reverse the first result at home. Yeah, listen, see when they come along, I'll be right up for it. But right now, I'm really interested in the domestic stuff and in the European stuff.
Just on Ben Doak as well, someone actually made the point, and I've lost it now though in the comment section. Ben Doak's only played like 13 professional games.
Yeah.
But yet he's now a mainstay for Scotland. I mean, Fraser, what do you think about Lennon Miller? Would you have had him in?
I'm with Steve Clarke in this, mate. Lennon Miller's not going to... I get your point. It'd be good to get him involved, know that. Lennon Miller is an extremely grown-up young man he'll fit into any squad. As soon as he walks in the dressing room, he'll be fine. That's why he got the captaincy for Motherwell in that semi-final. He's not going to knock anyone out of that Scotland 4-man midfield at the moment. He's in the under-19 squad for a reason. He's not even in the under-21 squad. He's in with under-19s so that he can keep getting games and influence them. His time will come. Steve Clarke's right. I mean, it's not as if Steve Clarke is shutting the door on the youngsters, as you've said. They've got Ben Doak in there, Tommy Conway coming up for the 21s, Kieran Slicker now in amongst the goalkeepers. Lennon Miller's time will definitely come. You saw him sort of on the back foot in that semi-final yesterday. I thought it was quite impressive how he protected his back four, but he didn't influence the game beyond that. Didn't really get the chance. He could get lost in an international at the top level of Nations League right now. His time will definitely come. I just don't think it's right now. Leave him where he is with the 19s, 21s. And by the way, his dad will be agreeing with that. His dad's in no rush to push him. He can get his game time with the younger squads, and that's going to improve him more than just sitting on the bench or training with the first team.
Robert, watching live on YouTube, seems to suggest that 2 defeats are coming up for Scotland. And just to play devil's advocate, both you guys mentioned the recent games since the Euros, and I completely agree. Scotland have been night and day, so much better in their approach, the way they've played. I think we're still, what is it, 1 win in 16?
Yeah, but it's got to be taken into context. There was a tournament, and nobody was happy with the way that they performed at the tournament, right? So it's like, they're not getting a free pass for that. That was unacceptable, Scotland. But what we've seen since then has been a very acceptable version of Scotland.
Yeah.
It's better, it's more progressive, it's more ambitious. And I don't really, as much as nobody wants to see, them getting routed anywhere. And in this section, it's not looking great with 2 games to go. I get that. I'm not that bothered about it, because as long as you're seeing progression from this team, as long as the manager is changing and not making the same mistakes over and over again, as long as we're not timid and toothless the way they were at the tournament, then I'm happy. Keep progressing, because the ultimate aim is the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it matters. And if lessons are getting learnt through these camps, as bad as the results have been, let's remember they've gone straight from a tournament into the top division of the Nations League. So results were never going to look particularly clever. It's the performances which really matter right now. Although I accept this run can't go on indefinitely.
Well, Croatia away, Poland at home. Fraser, are we going to... Sorry,
No,
other way about.
flip that.
Croatia at home, Poland away. Are we going to get this long-awaited win, Fraser, from at least one of the games?
I've already said I fancy us to, so I've got to stick by that, haven't I?
I know you're not paying attention, Daniel.
I know, come on,
Actually hear that,
we'll be into
Listen,
submission.
I've got a lot to do here. I've got comments on that, guys. Let's just chill out.
I don't know which of the two. That's the problem. Croatia at Hampden, possibly.
Croatia at Hampden,
chance.
surely. I know it's
What?
Croatia, but Croatia at Hampden, we'll get a win there.
Yeah. Remember Euro 2021?
No, that's true.
No.
But we were excellent against them in Zagreb.
Aye, we
we
were.
were,
Aye.
yeah.
We did. We played well.
So and I think going into this one, that will make them feel better. Yeah, I think there's a chance. Fraser, I'm not even going to write off the prospect of us getting the 6 points that you talked about.
Yeah. I hope you're right. I hope you're right and I'm wrong.
Because I do see the progression. And at some point, that progression will lead to an upturn in results.
Definitely, it has to, the way we're playing.
It will.
And
Get 2 goals up on Sunday. What a cushion. We seem to keep scoring the first goal. And then it's like we're retreating and not just not quite hanging on. If we could get 2 goals ahead at Hampden against Croatia, what a platform that would give them to go on and get that result.
Robert watching YouTube
Well,
again.
by the way,
Sorry,
a 1-0 win's not enough now.
I didn't say that. Come on.
I'd bite your hand off 1-0 right now. Robert,
Come on, Clark, get finger it.
Robert here saying, our goals from midfielders are drying up. We have no strikers. We can't say because we're playing in the top league. That explains the defeats. But I do think it's fair to say, like, the performance we've put in against Portugal, against Croatia, had that been against B nations, C nations, we definitely would have won.
Oh, of course you would. There's no doubt about it.
I think that is quite a good explanation.
Yeah, it's the explanation,
the best
actually.
teams in the world, right, and also the draw for qualifying for the World Cup, December the 13th, the same weekend as the Premier Sports Cup final. So that'll be a... You sleep well tonight.
That's Sunday then, obviously.
No, it's on the Friday leading up to the Sunday, the 13th.
Oh, Friday the 13th?
Friday the 13th.
Oh, well.
There you go.
Okay.
Guys, I think...
A fun fact to end the show, Daniel.
Like I say, you'll sleep well tonight. Guys, I think that brings us to the end of today's...
And not a minute too soon.
Today's Hotline Live, brought to you by Record Sport. Keith Jackson and Fraser Wilson, and of course Craig Swan. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for everyone watching at home.